Hey everybody, this is H10 Hanshin Tigers English News, and you probably know if you are seeing our faces that we have just recorded an episode of the podcast. That's right, I'm T Ray, the main host of the show, and over here is Sanjay. How you doing, brother?
Aloha. I'm doing all right. I'm getting ready to take a little trip from tomorrow, so a little bit stressed out right now.
Yeah. These things get kind of busy, and hope you have a good trip. I hope it's restful, and I hope it's just also everything that you need it to be.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to be talking some more Hanshin Tigers, even though we just did like about an hour's worth just earlier. And one of the reasons is because we have got a very interesting issue to talk with you all about. Now, it has been said by the greatest catcher in NPB history, Katsuya Nomura, that there is no such thing as a great team without a great catcher backing that team. I'm probably garbling the Japanese because he didn't say it in English. Do you know the Japanese that he said?
You know
I,
what? I'm not sure the exact phrasing, but it was like him giving himself a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he was the catcher that led the Nankai Hawks primarily to greatness.
Mhm.
Well, by coincidence, I happen to be wearing number 22 for the Tigers. This is a throwback jersey. It's not Kyuji. Do you know who 22 was?
Is it Tabuchi?
It was Tabuchi. I've got Tabuchi on the back and also his signature.
Oh,
Just
nice.
one of my favorite jerseys that I have. Anyhow, I didn't get
Cool.
the signature. I bought it with the signature on it. But he was an all-time great Hanshin Tigers catcher, possibly the greatest catcher in team history. Now, we, for the longest time as a team, did not have that rock solid catcher that would, play his whole career with the team and leave his name in team history until Ryutaro Umeno came along in the 2013 draft, made a bit of a splash in 2014. And aside from a spell in 2016 when Haraguchi was really hot and was the main catcher of the team, honestly, from 2017 onwards, he has kind of been the man behind the mask for this team more often than not. And for the most part, he is a very popular player. I think he's a very well-liked player. I think that he performs quite well. And the fact that he has won the Golden Glove in 2018, 19, and 20 speaks volumes for what he does behind the dish. This season, he switched from number 44 to number 2. He was extremely clutch in scoring situations earlier in the season, kind of slowed down a bit. And recently, my friend, the last 7 games is it? He has actually given way to Seishiro Sakamoto, who has been the starting catcher. And Umeno just made it into the last inning of last night's game. That was his first playing time in 7 games. So what to make of that, first of all, is the question. Like, why did they make that sudden switch? I haven't read it. I don't think it's an injury, but what do you think? Like, what prompted this?
Yeah, I don't know that. I think I haven't read the cause, but some speculation was that Umeno was really actually slumping quite a bit, and so give the guy a break and let Sakamoto get some reps. I think was one of the excuses being bandied about, and it sounds kind of believable to me.
So I think, yeah, it could very well be that was the initial decision. Let's give Umeno the night off because he's played a lot. And that night happened to be a night that Sakamoto led the pitchers wonderfully. And he just had rave reviews from columnists and other nerds behind computers. But also, I mean, he performed well. And think about who our manager is, Akihiro Yano. I guess he could arguably be the second greatest catcher in team history, depending on what numbers you look at or championships or whatever. But when he looks at the catchers, he knows what he's looking for and looking at. And so he clearly liked what he saw in Sakamoto's performance and just kept riding him. And as we said in the show proper, the pitcher's numbers have been outstanding under Sakamoto during this stretch. Even when the bats aren't performing well, we're winning 2-1 games or, like these really tight games. And the only blip on the radar was when Akiyama served up the 3 home runs in that one loss under Sakamoto.
Yep.
So here's the question for you. We asked it in the main show. We'll talk about it real quick here again. What do we do for the rest of these last 4 games of the regular season, plus one that we didn't talk about in the show, what to do in the playoffs then as well? What's your take, man?
Well, as I said in the show, I think for the rest of the regular season, you ride the hot hand, which is Seishiro Sakamoto. As to the postseason, I guess that might be a bit more of a judgment call. Maybe you go with certain matchups when I don't know, when Joe Gunkel's pitching, it's Umeno or something, whatever the right combinations are. I'd be okay with splitting time on those two guys. And lest we shortchange the guy that inspired number two, Umeno, to wear number two. Kenji Jojima wasn't such a slouch behind the plate for the Tigers as well, although he's not a homegrown product. But yeah, I think you want experience in there. You want people who've played in postseason situations, and that is Umeno more so than Sakamoto. So I'm okay with giving them both some time.
Absolutely. And here's the other interesting factor that surely Yano is thinking about, and definitely Umeno is thinking about as well. Okay. Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge the fact that Umeno brought the team this far, right? For games 1 through 134 or whatever, 133, he probably started about 120 plus of those.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact figure, but the team did extremely well with him behind the plate and behind the mask. And you can't just throw that away just because somebody got hot at the end of the year and say, well, you're riding the bench all the way through the end of the playoffs. That's one thing. The second one is the fact that guess who's got domestic free agency this offseason? That's right, Ryutaro Umeno. And so what do you do about that? If you continue to put him on the bench, where do you think his heart is going to be when it comes to negotiations? Is he going to say, yeah, well, you guys totally relegated me to the bench, even though I wasn't hurt. And even though I brought the team this far, yeah, I'll continue to pledge loyalty to you. I don't know about that. I think he'll be that much more willing to leave.
That's not how it works.
So that's the question then. Do you give him playing time simply to appease him and make sure that he stays with the team? And the bigger question is he worth hanging on to? And I don't mean, is he a good player, or do the Tigers like him or need him? Well, I guess, do they need him is the question. What do the catchers behind Umeno and also behind Sakamoto, if you will, look like? Because if Umeno leaves and Sakamoto takes the main role, well, looking at this small sample size, I would say, well, it might be a bit of a downgrade, but it's not like it's going to, affect the team's overall record in a whole season, is what I might say initially. But then you also have to think about backups and what would happen if Sakamoto were to get injured. Because now, if Umeno gets hurt, we've got Sakamoto, and that, again, is not a big step down, if any. But if Sakamoto were in that position, who's the guy that plays backup? Is it Haraguchi or is it somebody else? Okay, I asked you like 30 questions in there. So, so
Which
let's
one
just
you want
go
me to
for question
answer?
number one.
Yeah.
How much do we try to hang on to Umeno this offseason? What is he worth to you? If you want to put a dollar figure on it, or just like, how does the team show what he means to them this offseason when it comes to negotiations?
Oh, I think they make, their best effort possible to hang on to him. The guy has proven his both his worth behind the plate and in the batter's box through the years. Think about where we were at the early part of the season. He led the team in like a RISP average, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
he led the league for that matter.
Yeah, he led the league, I mean. And he was responsible for a number of wins, maybe not single-handedly, but he certainly had a big hand in it. Mm-hmm. Wins above replacement, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's up there. So, and listen, he's good. He's good. So I like having both him and Sakamoto in the fold.
Listen, one more factor as well, and that is that fact that he's a fan favorite. And we can't discount that because the team is looking at stuff like that as well. I mean, yeah, they're getting income from ticket sales and stuff like that. But these days, like the last 2 years, that really hasn't factored in as much as merch sales have. And Umeno is somebody that is, I mean, his products are going off the shelf, whether it be his jersey or the towels or anything else. Umeno, I mean, he's kind of the face of the franchise. And, you could almost argue that he's like the, he's bridging the gap between Toritani's departure and maybe like is Oyama ready to step up and be that face of the franchise? Well, he's got to put together 2 or 3 consecutive seasons of excellence. Chikamoto might be there pretty soon, if not this year, then next year. But right now, if you were to say who is the best position player on the Tigers or the most dependable, well, look at the Olympic roster for Samurai Japan. Who made it out of the Tigers? Umeno and nobody else. So I think in that respect, yeah, he is worth hanging on to. But let's look down the pipe, because assuming that, you know, the Tigers do the 2 things that we've said here, is that enough to keep Umeno? The first thing we said was we got to ride the hot hand and keep Sakamoto as the starting catcher for the last 4 games, right? Plus in the playoffs doing some kind of platoon thing. Is Umeno's ego and pride going to be intact enough for him to lend the Tigers front office an ear in the offseason? And then what about other teams? Are there other teams that need a catcher that might chase him? And there have been rumors, unfortunately, of the Orange going after him this offseason, perhaps.
Well, you know, I don't know what's going on inside his head, right?
Yeah.
But I think that if Umeno were a part of a Nippon Ichi team with Hanshin Tigers this year, that'll go a long ways towards him wanting to stay with the team.
Even if he doesn't start any of those games?
I wouldn't say not start any of them, but even if he doesn't start all of them, if there's the platooning going on, so on, and the net result is that we win Nippon Ichi, I think he'll be okay with that.
Yeah, that's another then condition that's placed on his absolute staying, right? So if he does go elsewhere, though, then the question is, who have we got that is going to ensure that we don't have a major downgrade at catcher? Because there aren't really any other free agent catchers out there, and I don't really see catchers on other teams that might want to be traded to us or that we might want to trade for. So with Haraguchi currently being our 3rd string catcher, does he then automatically get the 2nd string position? Because my concern with Haraguchi is his defense. I don't know if it is where it needs to be as far as being able to throw out other teams' runners and stuff like that. And I think one thing that we don't see in the numbers, and this factors into Umeno's greatness, is other teams tend not to run against the Tigers as much. Mm-hmm. But I've seen it in games where Haraguchi started, and we're talking a couple of years ago, but teams are running at will. And that makes a big difference then in pitchers' ERAs. It makes a big difference in wins and losses as well. That doesn't necessarily get factored in. So do we give that to Haraguchi, or do we say, Nagasaka, your time has come, or Sakaeda, we know you're still young, but you're the backup catcher from next year? Or I'm sure it's not going to be the new guy we just drafted, Nakagawa, or even Kento Fujita. I don't think he's ready either. But that leaves, you know what I mean, as our other catchers, we've got Katayama, we've got Sakaeda, and we've got Katayama. Did I say him?
You said him.
Nagasaka, Katayama, Sakaeda.
Yeah.
They all end with A. Okay, so anyways, that's a lot of names to kind of juggle around, but I don't know if these guys are necessarily the answer to be part of the regular top squad. I would say maybe Nagasaka or Sakaeda, because they were the main catchers down on the farm that led to the farm championship, right? More so than like a Katayama or Fujita or Nakagawa, the new guy. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting off season. And I think that's going to be the main focus for the Hanshin Tigers. I don't necessarily think, and we might get into this after 138 or 139, but I don't know if there's a good free agent crop as far as guys that we might pull in. I'm not talking catchers. I mean, just in general, upgrading. So I think like the biggest concern for the team is going to be, can we hang on to Umeno?
Yeah, I think you're right. And really, unless you got a really super free agent that actually wants to come play for Tigers and is in a position of need, I don't think we need to be going out there and getting free agent players. Our bench is so deep and experienced and stacked that, if we retain Umeno, that's our FA strategy for next year, I think.
Well, the one thing that I would say we're lacking is superstar power, and you don't necessarily need that to win championships. But if you like, when I look at other teams and I see some of the players they have, I definitely have a little bit of envy going on, particularly the position players, maybe less so the pitching staffs. But you look at like we don't have like a Seiya Suzuki or a Kazuma Okamoto or a Munetaka Murakami or okay, the Dragons have no one either. Or like a Keita Sano slash Tyler Austin type of situation going on with the Bay Stars. And so, or even like Shugo Maki. But then,
Well, we've
sorry.
got Sato for next
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Don't
was just going to
worry.
say, speaking of rookies like Maki, we have got Sato who could be the superstar that other teams look at us and go, why can't we have a guy like him? Right.
Yep.
Because that's one of the things I feel about the Tigers is why can't we have a guy like him? Not necessarily that I want to get Okamoto or you know what I mean, like these guys, but rather like just a guy that is like going to carry the team on his shoulders.
The guy, right? The
Yeah,
guy.
the guy. And I think
Sato will
Sato,
be the guy.
yeah.
But also, I have, I'm quite happy with the trajectory and what I see as the future potential for both Chikamoto and Nakano. Those guys are going to be solid guys to be around Sato as the guy.
So yeah, they're definitely great players that we can count on. I don't necessarily like, I don't know. I find it hard to see those guys as the superstar that other teams look at and say, I wish we had him. That being said, there is something to be said about speed and the quality of defense, which both of those guys have plenty of. But I'm thinking more like when we need the home run, when we need the big hit, this is our guy. So I don't know, like I guess like we've got Chikamoto who's leading the league in hits, which is great. But I was thinking more like the big sluggers. Well, anyways, we've digressed plenty from the talk, which was catchers. I hope that you are ready to catch the next episode of H10. Thank you for joining us today. Sanjay, as always, great talking with you. Happy travels to you. And I look forward to the next episode that we get to do together.
Thank you for having me, and I will have my eyes peeled following Hanshin Tigers English News' every report while I'm traveling.
Awesome, man. And you guys as well. Keep yourselves locked in to H10. Have a good one, everybody. Bye for now.